Welcome to the podcast Lighting the Educational Flame, created and produced by educator and author Mark Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring. The purpose of this program is to offer our listeners a variety of stories dealing with many interesting topics surrounding education. It is our hope that students and parents alike will benefit from the wide range of topics, including study skills, test prep, anti-bullying, sports, music, and more. We hope you enjoy our show, Lighting the Educational Flame.
Hello and welcome to the video podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Grade Success Education on the NETV network. I am Mark Hoberman, and today our guests will be Marcus Towns and Derek Drew from Pure Alchemy. Marcus and Derek, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Having us, Mark.
Great to have you guys here. So guys, we're very new to this, so please take your time and tell us a bit about yourselves. Marcus, because you have a great name, just like Mark, you can go first.
Sure. So, I'm a recent graduate from DePaul University. I've focused most of my, personal and professional career on consulting politics, right? I've been a field staffer, I've done political work, and then I kind of decided to make the shift over to, creating Pure Alchemy with Markel Oliver. Obviously, we brought Derek with us, but we wanted to focus on the educational system. We realized there's a lot of flaws in it. So that's kind of what the last years look like. And I think it's what the next 4 or 5 years is going to look like for me, is just trying to find a way to advocate for changes in the K through 12 structure and at the higher education level.
Excellent. Gotcha. And Derek?
Yeah, my name's Derek Drew, from the Chicago suburbs. Same kind of area, same kind of neck of the woods as Marcus and Markel and other members of Pure Alchemy. I graduated from Illinois State with my master's a couple years ago, and I did my undergrad at Southern Illinois University. My focus as well is obviously restructuring and kind of fixing the educational system, just because I've really noticed since I've got out of school, even getting my master's degree, that I've had to spend time unlearning a lot of things that were taught to me that were kind of bred as truth to me. So I talked to Marcus, Markel, and a lot of people about different changes that can be made as far as curriculum, and even as simple as the colors of buildings and things of that nature. So I'm super glad to be here, super glad to be a part of this and learn and as well as help build some change here.
Excellent. So why don't you guys tell us a bit about Pure Alchemy and why you want it to be such a major part of it?
Yes, Pure Alchemy is completely youth ran, right? The idea was that we had people who are recent graduates or still in school working on, seeing the flaws that they recognize in the educational system. So, we're uniting the ideas of tomorrow today is, our slogan. We essentially want to take these small things, like they look like small details, right? Color of buildings, the way a classroom's laid out, and then all the way up to, basic curriculum, and we want to reform it. There's our education system in the United States is deeply flawed. It's a design issue, right? And I think that, if you look at even the higher education level, we're sending a lot of students to just essentially go and, either learn how to move money around or maybe write laws, right? But what we need to be doing is looking at design, right? Looking at these fine arts, these liberal arts, different kind of degrees and programs, right? Because a lot of what business is going to be, looking like once we're more globalized in the next decade or so it's going to take a new revolutionary design. It's going to take different ideas. We can't keep doing what we've been doing if we're going to compete globally. And right now there's a lot of, look at our history, right? Like the things we're taught in history classes at K through 12 that they're just, blatantly incorrect. So we have so many different things we're looking at, all the way down from, youth to, like I said, just the way a classroom looks. And I think that having this organization and, following Markel's leadership, it's been a good start, but I think that we kind of got a quick, awakening in it, that there's so much work that goes into this, that there's a lot of other people out there trying to fight this good fight. So we really got to find a way to make it work. And honestly, it starts here, and it starts with the team we got.
So when you talk about youth, what is your age bracket that, what's your sweet spot?
So the idea is that the leadership team are going to be, juniors, seniors in college or recent graduates. So you know, 20 to 26, right? The 20, you know, mid to early 20s kind of range. But we want to bring on, you know, people who are 16, 17, 18, right? So they'd be sophomores, juniors, seniors, or
Sure,
going
high
into
school.
college, right? At the high school level. So we want to bring them on. And the idea is that we pass this along after we're done with it. So, you know, Markel and I and Derek will only be part of this for maybe a couple more years before like our leadership, we decide to step away and take on that next group of young leaders to then pick up the reins and then bring on, right? So it's going to be a continuing cycle of younger people. And I think that those are the best minds, right? They're the people that are about to come in and vote, right? So they can decide on our leaders. It's people who've just experienced it. So it's very, you know, fresh in all of our minds. So it's the perfect spot right now for at least age range.
And have you guys done anything in any Chicago schools yet?
Yeah, so a lot of the suburban schools, the DuPage County, Kane County, maybe suburban Cook a little bit. We've gotten in some of the schools and just honestly having an open dialogue with a lot of the students. So the teachers, superintendents have let us come in and essentially host these events where students can kind of just hear a real perspective, right? They just want to have like a raw conversation, like what it's like when you get older, what we see our issues, right? What we're you know, different life experiences that we can just share that we're saying like, hey, look, like life is challenging for a lot of people, right? And there's a lot of things that we don't talk about. So when it comes to like social emotional learning, right, we want to be able to like have a pipeline for these young students to say like, hey, what you're feeling, we also felt. Like it's okay to talk about this. It's okay for teachers and parents to be involved in these things. Like we all need to be involved. It needs to be a communal style of learning. We're trying to expand. Obviously, COVID has kind of put a wrench in our plans like it did for everybody else. So obviously following like CDC guidelines, we're going to wait until likely next year to get back into schools having these conversations. But in the meantime, we've been doing elevated elements, which are just essentially having community leaders come in and the way I could put it is blow off some steam, right? Like they just need to talk about what's going on in the world and what they're seeing, you know, in their own professional lives and how we can kind of break these different ideas down, you know, things such as, you know, we talked about happiness, just one, like making sure you're actually happy doing what you're doing and following your passions, right? So we have that. We had you know, a couple community events where we were trying to bring together both law enforcement and just, you know, community leaders to say like, we're in this together, whether or not we want to be. We need to find a way to move forward. So we're taking steps to kind of look at it from a different perspective of instead of just having like the student teacher and then like occasionally the parents come in, you know, parent teacher conferences, like bringing education to the community, right? Like everybody needs to be a part of our communal learning process. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into this.
Is there a classroom element versus an assembly type element versus a outside of the school element? What's the plan and what's kind of the format?
So the idea is we want to get to a point where it's more assembly style, right? Right now we've been doing strictly outside and then just classroom based. So we'd sit there for a couple class periods and just talk to, you know, that group of students, right? So maybe 30 or 40 students at a time, you know, catch maybe 200 students throughout the day. But we want to end up having like the entire auditorium, right, filled with all the students just for like one period, right, to just talk. I think that there's a component that is us just speaking, right? But there's like a large component of having the crowd and the audience play a role, right? Having them ask questions or share personal stories, that is important. So we have to figure out the right way to go about it when we have an assembly style, but historically we've been able to do it with classrooms and community settings.
So when you guys talk about the flaws in education, I was in education over 33 years. So I can tell you some flaws I saw, I can tell you some great things, but you guys are a totally different generation. So what flaws are you talking about that you saw as students, 15, 16, 18, college, 22, versus now that you're older, what do you see or what do you realize were flaws that you want to fix?
I know for me, in general, some of the subject matter seem to lack in terms of how much time we're spending in school versus how much time we're actually spending learning. I think a lot of I think history is a huge a topic of concern, just in terms of a lot of the history seems to be taught from the perspective of the quote unquote winners. So I think we need a much more broader kind of globalized view of learning history. I think financial education is grossly lacking in terms of things that people actually use to make money in the real world, whether that's stock market or credit or wealth building techniques. A lot of that stuff is either glossed over or ignored completely. And just exposure, as Marcus is saying, is exposure to different things. You spend a lot of time, or I say waste a lot of time in college, finding out some of the things you do and don't like. And a lot of that time, I think, could definitely have been spent in high school. One of the things I like that Chicago Public School has a history of doing is kids can get trades. They can get licensed, get certified to have trades before they leave high school, and leave with some skills that directly translate to dollars, directly translate to some real skills.
That's a specialized schools, not the regular public school.
Yeah, it's actually Chicago Public Schools. I don't know if they do now, but they absolutely had the opportunity. Kids had the opportunity to learn a trade while they were still in high school. So a couple of my teammates when I was in college left, and they told me they had trades where they could make glass and things of that nature. So and other things, I'm thinking like wood shop classes and just more hands-on experience. I think is definitely lacking. But for me specifically, I like to focus on the financial aspect, the financial literacy, and the actual historical education, because we look at a lot of problems today and we think, this is a new problem for one, and two, that it's impossible to solve. But a lot of these things, actually everything we're seeing now has happened before and will happen again. So it kind of gives people a better tool, a better arsenal to see the world around them in a more clear-cut way, and can definitely facilitate critical thinking and finding solutions outside of kind of the norm.
That's some great stuff, because I remember 400 years ago when I went to college, my last year, I got a credit card in the mail. I didn't know what to buy first. And you're talking about things that are more applicable, because although I loved curriculum, I was an English teacher, I loved making things and doing text to self connections. I don't think there's enough of that. And you're talking about, I remember years ago, the average, this is well before COVID, the average person, adult, owed $8,000 on their credit cards. Now it's over 11,000. And we see that during the pandemic, when people, or businesses even, were closed for 2 weeks, they were ready to shut down and go out of business. These are people who didn't have 2 or 3 weeks worth of income, didn't know where the rent was coming from, things of that nature. And that has never been, I can't say never, I've rarely, if ever, seen that taught in the schools, and credit cards and how to run bills in a checking account, how to do a reconciliation and things of that nature. So, I've always been a believer. My philosophy is education is not just academic. So the life skills that you're putting in are very important. So tell me how what you do has been received by the participants, by the people you serve.
So I think the dialogue that has been most, I think, helpful, right, when it comes to just the student perspective, has been more shared personal experience, right, where we've talked about things like burnout. We focus on the social emotional learning aspect of education. I think that has actually been the most helpful, because what you're finding is a lot of students, they're either not addressing these simple things like burnout, right? Like there's that grind kind of mentality that a lot of the younger generations are in, where, team no sleep, right? Like they're not eating properly. So kind of just like, obviously I'm not trained to be like a dietitian or whatever, right? But having a conversation, just saying like, hey, don't spend money on soda. You probably should just drink some water, right? Like get actual sleep, like little things like that. People like actually receive that information, right? Like you don't need a doctor to tell you that. Sometimes they just need another person who you can have like a shared experience. Talk about it with like the administrative side. I think that there is an issue, right? Because a lot of at the state level, right, the education is worked on at the federal level and then funded through the state level. So we almost had to get to a point where try to target different, like legislators and elected officials to see who essentially is going to be willing to take on a platform that is educational development. And I think like we need to have more resources for our teachers. A large issue, right? Like let's look at COVID. COVID may have been, in a way, a perfect like a perfect viewing opportunity, right? A participant opportunity for us as a country, right? We see this. These viruses and diseases are going to start to happen or appear more once, I guess, you see like the Arctic ice caps melting. But having a structure for making sure we have masks, making sure that teachers are actually prepared to be able to teach remotely, right? A lot of these teachers, not necessarily K through 12, but once you get to college, right, professors, some of them actually have been in a classroom for a couple of years. They've had a teaching assistant do it for them, right? Some of these teachers are drastically underpaid to pretty much babysit 30 students when they're at the K through 12 level, right? And parents aren't always stepping in. So we need to find a way, and I think this is something that as an organization we have to still get better at, is how are we going to target parents to say this is also your job to get in and raise these kids, right? And not like shame them for what they're doing, but say like we need to do more in order for the teachers to kind of take a little bit less off their plate, right? These teachers are going through it, and if their bosses are going through it, if they're going through it, the students aren't going to be able to learn effectively. So we just absolutely have to find, a way for all of us as a community to see what those actual problems are, and honestly just target solutions and try things, right? A lot of what's wrong with, I hate to say like America is like an all-encompassing thing, but our education system is that we're afraid to try new things. We think that we have it perfectly down when like we're not competing like we should be. We need to just, I don't care if it doesn't work after a year, right? Just try something instead of trying what is clearly not working. We need to just, start being a little innovative and take these different minds that we have and start working on our, infrastructure and develop new educational policy that will, not standardize, but instead allow people to actually learn, in the way that they're able to do so.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree there with Marcus. I mean, if anything, COVID has shown really forced a society to be more fluid, more like water, more innovative. So, I mean, things that we assumed had to be, things had to be this way. Kids had to be in school for 7, 8 hours. And now it's like, maybe you have to be there for 4 hours, 2 days a week. And they're being forced to try new things when, as Marcus is saying, we should have this stuff. We should have these emergency type of innovative strategies already in place. As Marcus was saying, COVID isn't the first kind of new virus. And just as the world continues to develop and industrialize, and as we start to live more and more, start to live closer to these animals, these viruses are going to, they're going to transfer, they're going to move. So we need to be able to be more like water. And when a situation like this presents itself, be able to just kind of flow into that new strategy and without missing a beat. So definitely 100% agree, that we need some more innovation. We need some different strategies. And because the way things have been set up now, I feel like it's been for the last 100 years, literally, since industrialization, the way schooling is now. And it's just, society isn't what it is today, what it was then when this system was developed. So obviously we need some changes, and things just need to be more applicable to the world of today if we want to be able to compete with up and coming countries and things of that nature. So
Well, I think that's great, and I think you guys are also kind of presenting yourself as role models. You may not know that, but I'm sure that people can really connect with you. And I know on your website it says that you use your experiences through art and insight to mentor the leaders of tomorrow. So as far as implementation is concerned, what does this mentorship of the leaders of tomorrow actually look like?
So the implementation, right, the actual mentorship program, it's providing opportunities, right? I think that real world hands-on experience is going to be important just for one, innovation, right? Like I would much rather have these, 17, 18-year-old students who want to try out, digital techniques, right? Try to make new creative designs, work on building websites, right? Get that actual hands-on real world experience, right? And then this is something that they're also going to inherit. So, take it, be proud of it, show it off, make it part of your own portfolio. So a lot of it's mentorship. A lot of it, when we talk about experience, like I said before, like my background's in politics, right? So it's taking people who may have questions about how to get involved, and just, pretty much taking you under their wing, right? Or taking them under, our wing. And essentially just providing opportunity. So I think that's the easiest way that I could say that. And then just allowing for us to be kind of, if they need an outlet, again, like I would much rather us be the outlet that they sometimes, like if they have some stuff they just want to talk about, get off their chest, like, put them up on one of our shows and allow them to have the opportunity to speak about what they see, and what kind of issues that are, around them. I think that we don't have a clear structure for allowing students to do that. I think that especially as a society, we look at 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and we're like, they don't know anything. Like, what do they, what do they know? But really the reality is, like, this is their future. This is, their world to inherit. So we got to work together to, kind of be better and just lead. We have to lead by example. So I hope that answers your question, Mark.
It does. It does. Go ahead, Derek.
Just saying, we really are focusing on being more communal. Society in general is grossly individualistic to the point where, to Marcus's talking, you're 16, 17, 18, it's a lot of cultures. When you turn 18, you're kicked out of the house with no guidance of any kind. And a lot of that just it comes from, is born from this individualistic nature that everybody has to figure things out on their own. So we're really wanting to drive home this aspect of community because we want to just pour into kids, people that want to be poured into, and provide them with the resources and the know-how to navigate this ever-changing world. And we understand, and when you build community, you don't have to worry about touching, 100 million people. All you need to worry about is the people within your reach. And then when people see things like this, when they see it breed success, when we have successful results, then you can take that same mold and you can implement it anywhere. So I think when we try to do these one size fits all type of strategies, that's where they're bound to fail because it's always going to cater to the majority. But if we focus on communities, people that somebody that might have some needs in Aurora is going to be different than the needs in Chicago and New York and vice versa. So focusing on pouring into that community will definitely arm people with the skills, the critical thinking skills, and the tools to where they can go back into their own community and empower and implement strategies how they see fit.
So this is not just in your mind. This isn't just a Chicago initiative. You would like to branch this out eventually, as far as you can take it.
Yeah, exactly.
We have
Absolutely.
to start somewhere, though. I mean, like, the education system is tailored for the middle, right? Like it's the average, right? You have those really smart students who it's weird. They get behind because they're too smart for what they're actually intaking. And you have the people who are struggling a little bit that just aren't getting the extra help they need. We need to find a way to implement a system that works, right? And if you have 20 students in a classroom, right, 20 of them learn differently, right? So we need to have a structure that, like a mold essentially, right, that it works differently per each student, right? And then try it where it works, right? Like we want to try it in these so like especially like the suburban Chicago suburban communities, right? Because a lot of them have a better than average education system. They're more funded, right? They just have more tools to success. So first trying it in these kind of smaller groups of school systems that are already doing well, that can afford to take maybe a period or two off to have this discussion with us, right? And then work into schools where they're a little bit, maybe they're a little bit more behind than the average school, where we don't necessarily want to take them away from what they're learning, but instead, like, maybe this one session, right, helps them for the rest of the year, right, for a couple of weeks. So just try to give them that extra little boost that they need. But I think that us trying to raise funding is going to be a huge problem. As a nonprofit, half of the job is like asking people for money so that we can put it in other places. But we want to be able to help develop some, after school programs down the line, and just help build, again, a communal form of learning. I know that for me personally, when I look at, I hate to blame parents because I don't want to blame parents for it, but I see a lot of time parents only show up when their students playing a sport, right? Or maybe playing an instrument or something. Like I want the parents involved in the process of them learning, not, taking over controls from the teacher, right? But being there and being supportive and being that kind of extra, needed person to make sure that that student's going to be successful long term. So just trying to find ways to, implement different programs to keep students busy after school and keep their minds working. Because we know like that young age, right, your mind can really intake a lot more than you think. So or that we think, right, when we look back at students, a lot of them are way smarter than we give them credit for. So we just want to be able to utilize their knowledge to the fullest and just prepare them for the future.
Well, definitely great stuff and a lot of work ahead of you, but it's great that you're doing this. And I know teachers can always use assistance, and I know funding is an issue. So hopefully, you'll go along the road and find some people, maybe sponsors, or run some programs, some fundraisers, and that nature. In closing, guys, what's the most important message? And I'm going to make it communal. What's the most important message that you can bring to teens, parents, educators, and the people you want to serve?
So mine's one word. It's fail. Like it is absolutely necessary to fail. And I think as a society, one of the biggest mistakes we've ever made is try to kind of hide that, right? Like we are like, oh, here's an F, like you failed.
Right.
Like, no, that's good. You like learn from this and we're not gonna make the same mistakes again. So at the end of the day, failure is okay. Continue to fail every day. I'm still failing. Derek's still failing. Mark is still failing. Like we're all failing. So don't try to hide our, hide the blemishes, right? Like embrace them and make them your own. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm thinking of learning when I was learning Spanish for the first time. You internalize the words that you mess up. That
Yep.
you make a mistake and then it's like, okay, I won't make that mistake again. For me personally, my message would be to figure it out as you go. I think that society wants us, or the demand is to have everything planned out before you move, or that you need to know what you're doing in terms of life at an extremely young age, and that's going to change. It's going to change. And my best advice, what I've been learning on my path to success, is that you just got to get out there and put your best foot forward and figure it out as you go. And that kind of echoes what Marcus is saying about failing. Don't be afraid to fail because as you're figuring it out, you're obviously going to fail, but you learn from those lessons. Those are the $1 million lessons when you just get out there and do it.
So true. Well said. So true. So guys, how can our viewers learn more about you and the services you offer and what your new things are going to do? I know you want some people to volunteer for some things. So where's the go-to place?
Yeah, so the purealchemygroup.com is our website. Pure Alchemy Group, Pure Alchemy LLC, Twitter, Facebook. I think we also have an Instagram. We're working on a YouTube channel. So every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central, we do a live Elevated Elements show. We try to just have different people on. Anybody who's interested in joining can go on our website, check out, fill out your information. We'll reach out to you. We're always looking for young students that just want to get involved and kind of give back, to their communities. We also offer internship opportunities. So, if you need a, jump start and you're trying to figure out what's the right way, like we're a group of very different people that have completely different networks, willing to help out every single student that we can, right? Former ESPN employees to Orlando Magic, right? Like we have it all. It's all encompassing. So we just want to be, there, but check out Elevated Elements, a great show that we got that I actually host. So, it was a good opportunity, but
excellent. Yep. Well, Marcus Towns and Derek Drew, I can't thank you guys enough for joining us today, sharing your incredible mission with us. Thank you so much for all the work you're continuing to do. Great having you on the show. And to the viewers, remember to reach out to us on social media. Look for Great Success on Facebook and Twitter. We would love to hear from you. You can also find me, Mark Hoberman, on LinkedIn. So again, Marcus, Derek, thanks for being with us. And viewers, don't forget to tune in to our next podcast. This is Mark Hoberman thanking you for watching the podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, on the Great Success Education channel on the NETV network. Have a great day, and we hope to see you soon. Guys, thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to Lighting the Educational Flame with Mark Hoberman. To contact Mark, email him at info@gradesuccess.com.